Boom, and we are recording, man.
Here we go.
Episode 1 of the PowerFall podcast.
Are you ready to say episode 1? Or is this pilot? Is this a pilot episode?
No, I think you're right. Let's call this the pilot because we're still working out the kinks. We're still blowing off the dust here.
Yeah, too much kink.
Too much kink, whole lot of dust. It's been a long time since I've done public speaking.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. So, dude, here we are.
Here we are.
What are we supposed to do?
Well, I think we should first start off with who we are and why our podcast is named what it is.
Okay. What is it named?
PowerFall, and that's a combination of both of our last names. Mine being Powers, yours being Fallert,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
So
that's
the
what
PowerFall project.
PowerFall project. What did I call it? Podcast?
I think you just said PowerFall.
I like project. Project sounds like we're creating something. Sounds like we're
Mhm.
building something.
Mm-hmm. I forget that I may be on camera because I'm a little fidgety and might be fondling myself.
Well, that's so good. It's a good time for a drink of your drink of choice. What are you sipping on?
I got a 12-year-old blended scotch.
God, you're going slightly more classy than I am. I'm over here sipping on Denver's finest, Coors Light.
Oh, see, yeah, taste of the Rockies. I have that. I'm a hairy individual, and so I drink that to keep the werewolf at bay. Silver bullet.
The silver bullet for me it just sits a little better right now. Unfortunately, that's part of getting old, man. The scotch is not treating me well lately, and that's been breaking my heart lately because scotch is something I was getting into the last 5 years, and then
Yeah.
here we go at the old age of 36, man. I'm sounding like an old man.
Oh man. Well, I will be 38 this weekend, and I definitely feel it as well, man. Feel it as well.
So is that where the fall comes in on the podcast, the PowerFall? I mean, what's fall? So
yeah.
fall is
So I am Adam Fallert, and that was where the foul or the fall or the whatever comes a part of the PowerFall project.
and then Powers is my last name, Nick Powers. It is either fitting for a superhero or a porn star.
Yeah, I like either, or a superhero porn star.
True, that's right. Superman did wear 2 different uniforms.
That's excellent. That's excellent. We got Clark Kent over here. That's who I am. All right. So what are we doing, man? Should we tell everybody a little bit about ourselves?
Well, yeah. People need to know who these knuckleheads are and how we came together, how this bromance started. So,
okay.
Yeah. Do you want to kick things off?
Okay. Well,
another drink.
Yeah. Let me. Answers are at the bottom. Yeah. So, small town dude. In the small town, I got an opportunity. Actually, small town in central Washington, high desert. So, got a chance to do a lot of like motorcycle riding and snowboarding, as well as playing lots of sports and stuff. That's really where the passion was early in life, was a lot of sports and stuff. High school, football, basketball, track, played some golf, that kind of deal. Went to a small college in Tacoma, Washington, played a little football. Worked through college, worked through the Boys and Girls Clubs, loved that. Yeah, man. After that, worked in advertising, worked in insurance, got into the financial field, owned my own business, moved across the country, lived in Florida for a little while, about 6 years, moved back, and dabbled in the financial field again. And, just had about a cup of coffee in the film financing, launching a fitness apparel brand here really shortly. So I'm super excited about that. Actually, I have a website up by the end of the week. So, and here I am doing a podcast with one of my boys. Yeah. I mean, this is just, and all this in 2020, which is just the craziest year ever, where I actually happened to also get married, believe it or not, in Cabo in the end of February, right before all this COVID stuff hit. So it has been a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, that was pretty much our last trip prior to the shutdown. It was starting to heat up when we were flying back, and it was starting to feel a little bit weird. I remember that.
Dude,
But thank God,
I don't know about
thank God you
you.
guys pulled it off.
Yeah, I mean, they're crazy, right? And to get all of that done, um, and then on the Uber ride back to our place as a newly, married couple in the Uber, the lady handed us at LAX, handed us each hand sanitizer. It was like, yeah, we're in a state of emergency. The governor has called it a state of emergency. So welcome back, but here's your hand sanitizers, and you can go ahead and keep that.
Happy blessings on your marriage.
Right, right. It was pretty wild. So, yeah, man,
Oh
that's me in a
man.
nutshell, dude. Who are you?
Well, I also am from a small town, but I'm also from Washington. But I think it's important that, or it's kind of weird. Our paths never crossed. I was from a town called Snohomish, and you were more in Eastern Washington,
Mhm,
and our paths should have crossed a few times. 'Cause I went dirt biking over there so much growing up, right, basically in your backyard.
mhm.
So I kind of grew up similar, small town. Went to private school my whole life. I'm one of those kids. I think my graduating my graduating class was a whopping 52 people.
Okay.
Um, I I think it left me with a pretty good education. It left me uh, not feeling like I had the most opportunities growing up, but at the same time, I really wasn't super bummed out about being at a small school my whole life because we were so busy. We started out racing go karts when I was 6. We were on a professional circuit, and then we went into motocross in our teens.
Dang.
And so we were always just so busy that we really didn't have time or, even the thought to get bummed out that, oh, I never tried out for football. I never tried out for basketball. I ran track a little bit, but that was mainly to stay in shape for motocross.
Yeah, dude, you were racing through life, man.
Yeah. And then so I'm kind of revisiting all those opportunities now older in life. I've been, doing some flag football a couple years ago. Then I got into ultimate frisbee pretty heavily. And yeah, just kind of picking up the pieces there. And I'm sure it left me a little bit socially awkward because I've always been an introvert, my whole life. So, when you proposition the idea to start a podcast, I was like, you know what? I think this would ultimately be good for both of us. And much like my favorite Tim Ferriss says, with any project, you want to make sure there's multiple positive outcomes or multiple outcomes that'll be a learning experience, even if this thing ends up being a flop. Just the fact that
Absolutely.
we're doing this podcast, we're taking this leap of faith. It's going to help. It's going to help me improve my public speaking. It's going to help me improve my verbiage and just economy of words. I think too, because a lot of times I end up rambling sometimes.
What? I
But
wasn't listening. What?
I'm I'm already doing it too because getting back to my story here, man. I grew up in Washington State. You're the nomad. I was pretty much I lived within the same probably 20 miles my whole life. I moved all around Western Washington, and I didn't move out of the state until I got married. I got married coming up on 4 years ago now, and just this last year, my wife, she's the nomad. She was born in California. She's lived in 9 states.
Oh, wow.
She's like, we don't have to live in this rainy Seattle weather all the time. And it got me thinking, we're young and no kids, and the world's our oyster. Basically, we started mapping out what's important to us, and um, in 2018, we had our very first trip to Las Vegas, and it it definitely sounds unconventional. It still kind of sounds weird that we actually live in Las Vegas now, but we started coming down here in 2018. In 2019, I think we came down here almost 6 times because we started to fall in love with Vegas. We fell in love with it the first time we actually got off the strip and started exploring around a little bit and realized there's a whole community, a whole life going on outside of the strip. And it seems like a no-brainer, but it started to fit all the needs we wanted to. It had good cost of living, awesome weather, awesome if you like really, really hot, no rain,
Right.
which, I can't tell you, in the 35 years I lived in Washington, I can't tell you how many times, stuff's been canceled or stuff's got,
Oh, brutal. Yeah.
affected by the
Yeah.
weather. Here, you pretty much don't have to think about it. It's either hot or really hot.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. And you're so right too. Like, everybody goes down for the Strip, and you spend, any more than 3 days, you're spending too long down there, and then to kind of through you learning more about the culture and the livelihood in Vegas and what all there is out there and the high desert living and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, we're kind of learning that it really fits a need that we didn't realize that we needed or we had until we got here. And that was the fact that we love diversity. We love connecting with people from all different backgrounds. And that's kind of something I discovered in my 20s. And it's been important to my wife for a long time. And what people say about Vegas is it kind of doesn't really have an identity. The Strip is obviously the Strip, but outside of that, like a lot of people say, oh, Vegas doesn't really have an identity. There's nothing iconic there besides the Strip. And in talking to the locals, it's kind of fun because everyone's coming from every different direction. We've met a lot of locals, but we've met, or people actually truly from here, but we've met obviously countless people who've moved here, migrated here, and the diversity is amazing. And
Yeah.
the people here are just so chill. They're the heat kind of humbles you. That's
Oh
kind of my
yeah, dude.
thought. I think.
Yeah, you can't be upset when everybody's just exhausted because of the heat. So let me. So okay, so you talked a bit about your background, but what do you do now? What did you do? What's kind of your professional background?
Yeah. So I've truly worn a lot of different hats over the years, and I think a lot of that came about just because of I get bored with certain things after a while, and I didn't take the traditional route. I never actually finished college. I dropped out to pursue a really exciting career in mortgage sales.
Yep. Hmm.
And we all know how that
Oh
goes
yeah.
in 2006 to 2008.
Oh, killing it,
Things were
right?
things were cooking pretty hot. We were making pretty good money. I worked basically in like a boiler room style um chop shop is kind of a nice word for what I worked in, but
Always be closing.
always be closing. Yeah, and it was fun. It taught me a lot about, sales, and it taught me a lot about what's important to me. I made some friends there that I still have to this day, and um that was kind of the turning point into just kind of this whirlwind of 15 years where I've worn like 3 or 4 different hats. After the mortgage sale, after the refinance bubble popped, and what was it? Was that 2008? When was that?
Yeah,
Two thou-
into 7, into 8.
Yeah, the subprime mortgage crisis. Then I went back into the motorcycle world because I'd raced motocross for so long. I had all my connections, and so I ended up working as an outside sales rep in the motorcycle industry for almost 7 years now, almost 7 years.
Wow.
And, that was a whole lot of fun. Traveled the United States. It was my first time really traveling routinely. I was traveling locally in Washington State, Oregon, and Idaho, but as well as all the West Coast, flying to different events, flying to trade shows, even going to Florida where Mr. Adam spent a lot of time.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then, goodness, I got kind of burned out on that. It's one of those things like if you're racing motocross on the weekends and you're selling the stuff Monday through Friday, eventually you kind of get burned out on it. It's like, oh man, one more motorcycle conversation, one more conversation about how cool that dirt bike
Yeah,
is.
you're like,
And
"All right, dude. Yeah, wide open. Okay, dude. Okay, we're cool. All
yeah,
right,
it's
got it."
fast. Yeah, I got burned out, man. And it was about that time too. I was traveling so much, I got out of shape a little bit, and I ended up really getting into fitness. I'd kind of dabbled in it prior to actually come to find out I worked in there for 9 years as a fitness coach. But prior to that, I'd only just kind of taken it casually. I'd kept my cardio and conditioning up quite a bit, for motocross, but I ended up hiring a personal trainer in my mid 20s, and that was a big game changer. I learned a whole bunch about fitness,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I learned how you could make a career out of it. So I ended up working as a fitness coach for almost 9 years after that. And I wouldn't say I got burned out the way I got burned out in the motorcycle industry, but I felt like I'd accomplished almost everything that I really wanted to accomplish in the fitness world. The next step would have been opening my own gym, and that just
Right.
didn't really, I've seen that path. I know a bunch of gym owners. I see what they go through. It just the lifestyle just didn't quite fit what I wanted to do. I'm sure
Yeah, you hit the
you're a
peak of
gym.
your mountain, and you didn't wanna start another a different journey. I mean, then you're just a business owner. You're not necessarily getting to a different peak. So, yeah, I hear you.
Exactly.
I hear you. And so then
Yeah,
what are you
you
doing
really
now?
well, now I've pivoted again. I'm still very passionate about fitness, and I'm loving fitness again. I kind of got a new birth of my love for fitness in the sense that now I'm not coaching so much. I can actually focus on my own workouts. Um, but I started on accident. I started a photo and film industry or film business. Uh, this really accelerated. I'd always kind of dabbled with cameras over the years, just
Just amateur stuff.
point, yeah, just amateur stuff, really, really stupid stuff. And then it accelerated heavily when I got married. I married into a family of creatives. Both my wife's really good with photography. Her brother's a world class photographer. Her sister's a blogger, influencer, small business owner. She got like 9 things going at all times. So they're very creative. And that really accelerated things. They pushed me to start taking it more seriously, start investing in equipment. And one thing I learned along the way, and you might understand this too with your new venture there with Gym Rats, is that I actually love building businesses. And that's something
Yeah.
I didn't really realize until I was almost 30, that I love kind of figuring out the ins and outs, figuring out how to make money unconventional ways. Because, I didn't finish college too. I think that was a lot of it there. I've always had to go different routes. The fitness industry taught me how to build a business. And I lo and behold, this photography thing, man, it's really fun. And now we're doing a lot of filmmaking. There's a lot of business out there, and it's creative. It's allowed me to, scratch this creative itch that I really haven't paid much attention to since I was in goodness, like elementary school, because I didn't know you could make money on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, because I heard a quote not too long ago, and then I just actually said it to my wife earlier today, which was, and it's similar to what you're saying with the business world, that you had to learn that. I don't know that, I mean, college teaches you to complete things, sure, but you can do a task in college, you can write a paper, you get a grade based on however well you did, but in the business world, you only get paid for done. Like you
Right.
don't get paid unless it's done. And so, like, I mean, those are some hard knocks lessons that you absolutely had to learn. So that's definitely what I'm learning right now with launching businesses, is you don't get paid unless it's done. So
Yeah, I want to hear more. I'm sure the people want to hear more too about what you're working on right now. You've got basically two different things that are kind of unconventional and new for you. One being the film thing. I'd love to hear more about that.
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of it is proprietary, so I can't necessarily divulge a whole lot of information about it. But we're really just trying to get a production company off the ground. We've got one film that is done, that was in theaters, um, and now we're looking at a co-financing deal with Netflix. Get a chance to pump out 3 movies that Netflix helps us pay for, and then after it goes through the Netflix kind of suite, it comes back into our ownership, and they're called windows. It's in the Netflix window, and then it comes back to us as we own the property, and then we'll get to window it out into other opportunities. So that's one of the biggest things, is being able to retain the asset in the film world. So that's one thing I'm working on. The other one is launching a fitness brand, um, which a lot of it was due to COVID. My wife has her own fashion line, and a lot of what my line, Gym Rats, and how it got started was basically seeing how so many of the conflicts and issues and stuff that she ran into in creating a brand new thing. I wanted to cut through a lot of that and streamline it and see if I could get a more efficient route. And so that's what I've been doing through COVID, is putting this thing together. A lot of learning, a lot of YouTube, and a lot of reading books. Or I don't read. I'm dyslexic, so I listen to a lot of books.
Likewise.
But um, but yeah. So I mean, I'm super excited about it. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that when I can get a little bit more public about it. One thing you brought up that I think we have to talk about, and
Yeah.
you said that you've always been a bit of an introvert. And I know that that's something that in your household, you have an introvert and an extrovert. And in my household, we have an introvert and an extrovert. And I'm more of an extrovert. My wife's more of an introvert. Now, she's very social, and she's very, and just like you, she's out and she can get along with people and all that kind of stuff. And so one thing that I heard today about the introvert and extrovert thing is, it's all in modern society, and in today's world, a lot of times what we talk about with introvert and extrovert is how we act in public, like how we
Mm.
interact with people, or how we stand in line at the grocery store? Do we talk to that person? Do we not talk to this person? Are we bubbly? Are we, all that kind of stuff. And something that got flipped on its head to me today was an introvert and an extrovert isn't necessarily how it is to the outside world. Most of it is how it is internally and how
Mm.
you process, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I know that you and your wife process through different things differently than how my wife and I do. At the same time, you're very similar to my wife. I'm very similar to your wife in the way that we process and communicate and talk and that kind of stuff too. So anyway, it was just a
Yeah,
thought.
you're my man wife.
That's right.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had some, I guess we could say, learning curves, some learning moments. My wife and I learn working with that. But for example, we'll have an amazing, because my wife and I work together. We'll have an amazing gig. We'll wow the client. It'll be a total success. We made new connections. Everything was a win. Everything was so exciting about the situation. On the drive home, I'm the one that likes to be quiet and kind of recap and decompress and kind of organize my thoughts. She's the one that wants to get in the car and just explode and talk about it. And I'm like, it actually gets to the point where it stresses me out. And I ended up reading a book a number of years ago, because the funny thing is I'm an introvert, or so I thought, but I've always had some kind of job where I've been in the limelight, mortgage sales, cold calling. We started out cold calling, making 120 phone calls minimum a day. That's kind of how they onboarded us. That was you got to pay the dues.
Hmm.
And nothing about that's introvert. And so that
No,
taught me a lot.
well, and
Yeah, go
sorry, I
ahead.
was going to cut you off, but I mean, and that's my extrovert probably. But I mean, it's because you process how you're going to do things, and then you are playing a role when you go and do outside sales, when you are running a fitness class, when you are doing that stuff, you are clicking a button and turning into that
Mhm.
role,
Mhm.
because I see it with my wife when she goes out and she has to do some networking stuff. She has to go to her women's club and she's like on her stuff. And then I physically watch her, like, you just power down, and then she needs quiet. She needs to
Decompress
talk.
time.
Yeah. And it's because that activity isn't necessarily natural. That is, I'm pushing a button and I'm turning into this role. Now, granted, it's authentic. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like when you were, hawking chest plates and helmets and stuff, in the motorcycle world, you were being authentic, but you had to turn on that button and become that.
Correct. Yeah, that was very authentic. And then that one I genuinely got authentically burned out, on the
Mm.
industry. Um when I did the mortgage sales, I learned that, I was decent at it, because basically cold calling is just learning a script, learning the rebuttals, learning how to, place them. It's something that can be taught. There's obviously people that are really good at it, but I was playing a role that definitely didn't feel genuine. I'd go home at night and be like, who the hell am I?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And that's not a feeling.
especially when yeah, not a good feeling, especially when the market's starting to crash and you see what people are doing with these subprime loans. And the fitness thing, though, was definitely very much on the limelight, very much clicking a button, playing a role, and it was 100% genuine. I learned really quickly what it meant to serve people.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks fitness is just, oh, you work out all the time and you show some people how to do some stuff. But no, you're serving these people, because it's people bring all kinds of baggage into the gym, good and bad, and all different personalities. You're basically being a therapist, in a lot of different ways. And I learned really quickly what it means to serve. And I learned that about myself too. I like to serve people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we've
Yeah.
always kind of run with the word empower. Like I've had Empower Fitness, I had Empower Food. I tried a food business for a while, and I love the word empower because we just love building people up, and that's why the business we have currently is Empower Media Productions.
Yeah, it's that power of the attitude too. I mean, like being able to bring that. I mean, just to kind of pile on your point there. I mean, when I was an athlete playing, and you had a 6 a.m. practice or whatever, and you roll in and you just, your eyes are heavy and you're tired. You don't want to be there, and you're just getting through it, right? But then having, I coached a little bit at the college level, and having to be there as a coach, and like I signed up for the 6 a.m. workouts. Like I'm having run the weight room for these guys for the 6 a.m. workout, and like I'm just as tired and I'm just as not wanting to be there. and all that kind of stuff. And here I am having to, click, turn it on, and here we are. We're all excited to be here because the moment as the coach and as the leader is as soon as you're a little bit cold, as soon as you're a little bit tired,
Oh,
then
yeah. Oh,
all the
yeah.
players, all the your class is tired and cold and doesn't want to do it. So you have to bring that.
Yeah, you know what I noticed in coaching fitness, most of the fitness coaching we did was functional fitness, a lot of your just average guys, a lot of office workers. The 6 a.m. session was our earliest session we coached. We coached on the hour every hour. And there were some sessions where I had to bring the energy, but it was funny. That type A personality, the type of guy that's going to get there, the middle-aged lawyer, the doctor, whatever it is, it's going to get there at 6 a.m. They were more wired up than I was, and they would always give me a hard time. Hey, wake up, coach! And I was doing a pretty good job. And what was funny was it was 7 o'clock. That's the one I had to really bring the energy. The 7 o'clock crew is the one that got to sleep in just a little bit more, and it's just a slightly different mindset. Nothing wrong with them, just different pace. And
Mhm.
you talking about having to show up and be the energy guy. I had to bring more energy at 7 a.m. than I did 6 a.m.
Oh, wow, yeah. Huh, I never would've thought
Yeah.
about that. That makes sense, though.
But yeah, it's the introvert extrovert thing. I really took ownership of it about 10 years ago because it was bugging me. I'm like, everyone says you're an introvert, and for a while there, I guess, I mean, it carries a negative connotation a little bit too, and I was kind of self-conscious about it. But I read a book. I'll have to get back to the name of the book. I'll probably put it in the show notes. But a buddy of mine gave it to me. It explained that there's kind of a hybrid personality where it's
Mm,
introvert extrovert. So you get it's a person who gets a lot of fulfillment out of being in the limelight, working with people, but they absolutely have to have their downtime and they have to have their solitude time to kind of recharge the batteries and recoup. And that book changed my life.
yeah, that's really interesting actually too, 'cause what I was kinda going with this and how I was relating your relationship and my relationship with that yesterday, my wife was talking about an idea and something she had a bit of a breakthrough, and I pumped the brakes before I gave my normal, like, excited list of all the things that we can do and how we're gonna jump all over this and how it's the greatest thing ever and how I'm gonna support her and all that kind of stuff, which on the surface is great. But if that's not the way that she can receive that and it ends up just stressing her out and then she can't process and all that kind of stuff, like, dude, it's not helping. And so like
Mm.
I had to broach the topic with, okay, so normally I vomit all over you with information and excitement, and then you end up losing momentum, and it's not helping you. So how I'm like, first and foremost, I'm really excited about this, and it's a great idea. But how can I help you tackle this? Because and I found, oh geez, kicked my microphone. I found that really helped because and then we talked about we talked about how it can provide a lot of interference to her idea and like she can lose
Mm.
momentum. And then we flipped it around and how it's the opposite for me. If I'm like, hey, I thought about this really cool thing and this is what I want to do, and help me and let's brainstorm. And then she's like, I gotta go, process. I'm like, that just kills all my momentum. Like,
That is my wife to a
I'm
T.
like, what are you
You're my wife
doing?
to a T.
Yeah, you know, I'm like, no, I want this momentum. This is going. Let's go. And you want to go off and think about it? Like that's killing me. So part of that was having that conversation and figuring out how the two of us operate in that differently. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting topic.
How have you guys changed these situations? What's evolved?
No, that. So the conversation yesterday is actually the result of of months of time of not being able to click on that same page. Like she'll be like, "This is my
Got it.
idea," and I'm like, "Okay, cool. We need to do this, and then we need to do this." Blah, blah, blah. She's like, "Listen, I know how to process things. I know how to put the list together. You're not helping me. You're killing my momentum." And so we'd end up like almost fighting over this stuff. And then I'd bring an idea to her, and then she'd be like, "Okay, yeah, that's a lot. Let me go, think about that." And meanwhile, I'm just like, uh dude, like I need to wrap this with somebody. I need to bounce this off. So where we are now is able to um at least have that understanding. And so then, like, when I bring something to her, she's like, okay, all right, well, and what she just, what she does is just, appeases my ego and just like ask me questions, which just really gives me opportunity to talk. So then I just rattle off to her. So, the more of it for me is I need a sounding board to bounce it off of. I don't necessarily need her to match my energy. I just
Mm.
need her to like stoke the fire as I'm rapid firing it back at her. You know what I mean?
Right. Man, I feel like you could write a book someday because you especially got a crash course in, a new personality type, but one that does complement. You guys do complement each other quite a bit,
Mhm.
but you got a crash course in living with that personality, and also add on to the fact that we both are in interracial marriages. I
Mhm.
married Korean, you married Vietnamese. There's a lot of similarities that we found. I think that's something that's going to routinely come up as this podcast evolves.
Mhm. Mhm.
But man, I feel like you've got the crash course because you guys got a pretty hot start. You guys moved a few times and then got married, and then COVID hit. And so you guys were forced to spend a lot more time together than, probably would have expected. And
Yeah, I mean, think about
I
it,
feel
dude.
like you could talk for days.
We had we had career changes. We had two moves. One move from Washington to California. We had a car accident with each other, mind you.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah. I may have texted her and she may have looked down and read it and she may have rear-ended me. I mean, I don't know.
Allegedly. Yeah.
Allegedly. So, yeah, a lot of I had my mom came down and kind of did some of the prep work to help us move, doing some of the
Mm.
packing and wrapping plates and all that stuff. And she was like, you guys have lived like 30 years of marriage in 2 years, and we did all that stuff before we were even married. So pretty wild.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, pretty
That's awesome.
pretty cool.
It's going to be something that we're going to look back, 5, 10, 15, whatever years from now and talk about it. This year has really put the pressure cooker on a lot of people. And uh, it was my first time moving out of state, and so my grandioso plan is to move down here and start the business, get it up and going. And then, we had a good savings buffer. And then all of a sudden, quarantine hits, and then we got riots going on too, and the political mess. And
Yep.
it's been humbling and a learning experience. And it's something I think we could both talk for days about. But ultimately, it's really put us in the pressure cooker and forced us to, figure some stuff out and figure stuff out in a crash course that's really going to carry us, I think, for the rest of our marriage.
Oh, no question, dude. And this time has been interesting because you hear a lot of people, like a lot of parents upset because they have to spend all this time with their kids, and there's a lot of, I mean, in a fond way, also just kind of a tearing your hair out kind of way too. Like, wait, I have to cook, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do. I'm also their PE teacher as well as their English teacher, as well as I have to do my full time job. I have to, all this kind of stuff. So I mean, sure, people are just worn down, and then you have a lot of marriages that are being stressed right now too. And dude, I get that. And like, as newlyweds, we're still have time and have those times where we're tearing our hair out. I moved from a 3-bed 2-bath with a full garage and a nice big backyard in Florida, and here we are 2 years later, and I'm in a smaller apartment with my wife, a 1-bedroom apartment in downtown LA. And so I mean, like, it's a different world. And then with COVID, not being able to go outside and do all this other stuff, I mean, you could see how relationships that have a tough time communicating, or maybe don't necessarily have a whole lot of things in common when they're actually spending all day together,
Mm.
you could see how that could come away at the seams. But I think your point, I mean, those things that we are experiencing in this time is only making that bond stronger. And I don't know about you, but I've just learned so much about myself over the
Mm.
last 4 months of COVID.
Yeah, and I think that's something that it resonates with both of us. We whether it's in our own words or not, but we both kind of went into this quarantine here, and I'll be damned if I come out of this quarantine with the same skill set and the same mindset, and the same motivation level as I did going in. And so I've spent so much time learning, so much time building and growing and just analyzing things. And then also too with the political stuff going on. But, like this podcast was just something that evolved. And again, we don't want to come out of this whole time in our lives right now the same. And so it's forcing us to kind of do stuff that, we probably would never have done.
Absolutely, dude. I totally agree with that. I was talking to another entrepreneur friend of mine, and he was kind of PO'd talking to a friend of his, and my buddy is trying to ramp up this business. He had a startup business in the fall, and so he got like he's a little bit post revenue, and then the new year hits, and then by March, it's COVID, and so 6 months into a business, and he's working 80 hours a week trying to keep this thing going, and all this kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And one of his best friends is is a waiter, and granted,
Ooh.
he's married, and he has a kid, and he gets to spend time with them, and they get to do their thing. And but the way that my buddy referenced or framed it to his friend was, you guys still think this is vacation. Like, the way that you're looking
Right.
at this
Right.
COVID thing is, you're still looking at this as vacation. You're like, yeah, I mean, we watched a ton of Netflix, and we did a lot of coloring, and we built,
Cook some
we cooked some
food.
food, and like, all those things are great, right? By all means, if you're working on your career, and you're able to do that at home, or you're just some good quality time, fantastic. But to your point, like, if I can learn a whole bunch of stuff with this, I mean, people are learning how to play the piano or learning a different language, all this kind of stuff. I'm launching a business, an e-commerce business, and we're doing a podcast. Now, granted, it hasn't all been great, right? I mean, like,
Mm-mm.
a lot of time, in order to get to this place right now where I'm feeling awesome, I went through 3 months of questioning myself and worried that, spent a lot of time worrying and not all that positive. And so, I mean, it's a journey regardless.
Yeah, it's a journey and it's evolving. Yeah, I kind of went through the waves of emotions as well. And the first month for me was a lot of stress, and that culminated in a lot of drinking and a lot of eating. And then the fire got lit inside of me, and I'm like, you know what, I'm I moved my wife across the country. We're in the middle of nowhere. We actually upsized our living situation. And I'm like, I got to be a leader here. So I parked the alcohol for about 60 days. And
Hmm.
you can see on camera here now, I'm finally at a good spot now where I can have a couple beers and be fine. Nothing was ever out of control, but it was just another element that I didn't want to have,
Right.
playing in there. And so, yeah, it's gonna be interesting what comes out of this. But yeah, I'm thankful for the pressure cooker situation that it kind of put us in to really think outside of the box and do stuff we normally wouldn't do. And I hope we don't lose that as we come out of this kind of sense of urgency and this, um, sense of needing to diversify income and figure out, what's important to you, what's important to our marriage and whatnot. And this friendship is definitely something I think has gotten stronger too. And I love the fact that you're so close. For the people that are listening here, I'm in Vegas. Adam, you're in downtown LA,
Hmm.
and so you're just a quick drive or a short flight away, and it's been perfect.
Yeah, man, for sure. For sure. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but yeah, I mean, relocating down to LA, you guys moved down to Vegas right around the same time. I mean, late summer, early fall for the both of us. I don't know. It's been incredible to be able to, like, give you a call and be like, dude, am I crazy for thinking this, and this? And be like, all right, first of all, yeah, no, no, no. I mean, it's
Well,
it's been kind of,
yeah,
I don't know, it's been kind of fun.
I think that's something we should talk about in future podcasts is intricacies of living with an Asian woman,
Yeah,
and I should say living with a classy Asian woman.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, that's something we can get into in future podcasts. And this format's going to kind of evolve, and hopefully people give us feedback on what they like, what they don't like. And as far as the next podcast, I know we were kind of talking about different ideas on what
Mhm.
to talk about. You had some ideas you wanted to dive into a little bit, and
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we kind of What I would like to do going forward is I'll bring something to the table and kind of set it up and we can talk about it. We'll go through it. I'll get your thoughts on it, and then we'll move into something that you're bringing. But then also, I just want to have some fun too. Just bounce off some silly things that we can bring up as well. I had the chance to check out Jim Carrey's new book just this weekend. It was one of those things where I'm like, I've always loved Jim Carrey, and I was like
Right, right.
looking for something, and I was on Twitter and I saw somebody write a really pretty oddball awesome review of it, and I'm like, okay, that's what I needed. That was the tipping point that I needed. So I downloaded it on Audible and I just whipped through it in a weekend. I'm sure my wife wasn't thrilled about how much time I spent just with my AirPods and just zoning out listening to that and having the time of my life. But um and so anyway, so by listening to that book, it made me think. I'm like, well, that's one thing that we got to do. I think it's going to be a challenge. I think that to come up with and then defend your answer of top 5 Jim Carrey movies,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
why
yeah.
for next week.
I think we should do movies and then kind of like appearances because he's been in a lot of different stuff too. He's dropped in, Saturday Night Live and whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like that. Yeah, each podcast we're gonna kind of have a topic we're gonna riff around, and ultimately it's just two guys that are just going through it, and we have a lot of similarities and we got a lot of stuff to bring to the table because I think we've worn so many hats over the years too.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's I'm gonna have to put my thinking cap on. That's a tough one, man. Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I mean, we can go just classic slapstick funny. We can go his more serious roles. We can do, reflecting on how he, what he was doing at that time, and I don't know. It'll be fun.
No, I like it. So that's we'll leave it at that, and then we're attempting to do this once per week for now,
Yep.
and if things start picking up, if people like the sound of our deep voices, we'll
Yeah.
maybe consider ramping it up.
Yeah. You have a soothing tone.
On that note, buddy, I love you. It's been good.
Yeah, man.
Episode, the pilot episode in the books.
Pilot in the books. I like it, dude. All right, brother.
Take care. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, man.